Good afternoon. It's Sabrina Khan, a founder and host of FuelYourselfFabulous.tv. And I'm so glad you're here today because remember, this is a live interactive web show where you can ask questions. And really, this platform was fueled with my own desire to sort of share correct information with people. So my mission really is to play a major role in the overall awareness of health and vitality in women, and through that process revive the way they eat, move, live and think, because I think we are living in a world where it's a very vulnerable world that we're living in at the minute, because chronic illnesses, dis-ease and obesity as it is at an all-time high. And you know, there can be very sort of simple solutions for that kind of thing. And my aim is just to provide you sort of really good healthcare information that has worked for other people. And yeah, it might work for you as well. So that's really my aim with the shows and sort of my overall message. So today I've got Claire Ward with me, and Claire is actually a nutritional therapist. She's got her own business. It's NutriKind Nutrition, and Claire will cover today how to detect if your digestive system is off. There's some simple nutrition changes required to sort of heal your overall digestion and IBS, and why stress actually plays a major role in these conditions. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this overall topic is because I myself have suffered from these conditions for over 20 years, and yeah, so it's something that's very, very personal to me. Sorry about that. I had an interruption there. But so Claire, I'm going to start you off now today. Why do so many people have digestive health issues and problems? Because when I was telling people about my own problems, it's like everywhere I went, people were having the same. It's like, oh, we know someone that had excruciating problems, and after 6 months she got a diagnosis, and we know someone that had these problems. So why do so many people have them?
Yeah, no, it's very, very common. I mean, majority of my patients that come and see me do have some level of gut imbalances. I think it's partly diet. Obviously, that's a huge part of it, what people are now eating. Our diet's changed dramatically over the last 100 years, especially even more 50 years. It's just got progressively worse and worse, more refined, you know, not so many natural foods, processed foods. A lot of deficiencies now as well in people that I see can cause imbalances in the body, especially gut imbalances, and not awareness about how these deficiencies are picked up either. You know, people don't go to their GP, they don't know how to test for them, they're not aware of what those deficiencies might be that could cause problems. Also, I think we tend to be very overly stressed. Our society now, you know, we're always on the go, we're always kind of in a rush. We don't really take a lot of time out to, you know, have time to ourselves to chill out really. And I think, you know, that adrenaline, fight and flight all the time, like constantly doing everything, that again can, you know, it can exacerbate gut health and lead to imbalances. Also, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, you know, advertising. People don't know where to go to get the right advice. I think there's too much choice as well in supermarkets now. There's so many foods and so many aisles with temptation that it's so easy to go shopping, and you know, half your basket will be stuff that's probably not of the healthy kind, you know, and maybe some of it might be healthy, but I think half of that is not knowing necessarily that some of those foods are unhealthy, because people they can't make informed choices if they don't know enough about what are the good foods and what are the, you know, the foods to avoid, which there needs to be more obviously knowledge about that. And I think also partly people are addicted to food, and there's a big part in this where someone's addicted to foods. That can be actually a sign that you're actually intolerant to a food and you become an addict to that food, which I can go on a bit later to in more detail to discuss. But there's a reaction that goes on with the gut and the brain, so you can tend to be cooked on a food. For example, it might be sugar or dairy or something like that, and that kind of spirals out of control because it's a physical addiction, and then that leads to a lot of inflammation in your gut. So I mean, that again can be another thing that's why I think there's so many digestive issues at the moment in this country, and people are just not aware, like I say, of all the causes of these.
Yeah, because it is quite a big area, because what I've realized, and in all the reading that I've done, and I've been reading a lot of sort of specialist books by experts in this area, anything that's there's lots of different sort of legs to the overall umbrella, which is IBS. And once your GP's eliminated all the more dangerous things, and if you've got sort of symptoms of constipation, diarrhea, bloating, they sort of put it over a general umbrella, which is IBS, which, but under that, like you said, there's so many different symptoms, there's so many different legs under that one thing, and not everyone's the same, are they?
No, definitely not. There are so many symptoms that can come from IBS, and there's not one cause, because everyone is so individual. And in my practice, I'm always looking at what the triggers are, and as I say, there could be 50 different triggers for it. So many things like medication, antibiotics. There's all kinds of things that can throw the gut out of balance. So you really have to know the root of it, obviously, to inform your approach, because if you've got the wrong diagnosis, then you can't inform the right protocol. So it's very important to diagnose it where it's coming from as well.
Yeah, and back to sort of like you said, the people think that they're picking up something healthy, but it's actually not healthy, because I learned this through working with a personal trainer over a long period of time, and I'd just pick up something and I'd go, oh, this is healthy, and then he'd go, no, you can't eat that because it's full of sugar, or no, you can't eat that because it's got the colouring in it, or no, you can't eat that. And I mean, I just, like something simple, like even like peanut butter, which you think would be healthy, is full of bad oils and full of lots of sugar. So I think the whole learning what is really good for you, it's like a whole course in itself, isn't it? It's like a course in itself. So how do you manage that though? So, because it took me a long time to learn what was actually good for me and what wasn't. So, what's a simple way that people become aware of this?
Yeah, there's a few things I say to people actually generally. I do say, if something, for example, if sugar is in the first 3 ingredients on a product, then I would avoid it, because it's really high in sugar. And even if it's in it, you really want to minimize it in generally anyway. I'd also say to people, look out for man-made, like artificial names in products. So anything, the more artificial names and man-made names it has on the packet, then that's a sign that it's not that good for you, especially with things like sweeteners, trans fats, things that are now that are so widespread in so many foods. We never used to eat these years ago, so they're not, we're not really designed to tolerate them. So they're quick things you can do in the supermarket. And obviously looking generally for sugar contents and fat contents and what kinds of fats there are and how much salt is in something. But again, salt it's a bit difficult, because people get confused with the salt thing. Sometimes you can have salt, but it's got to be obviously the right type of salt is okay for you. It's only when it's the refined type. So if it's got things like sea salt in it, then that's okay. So it's knowing those kind of types of things, where you can make the right decision between, is it refined, is it unrefined, especially with sugars as well. Things that are like generally you'd want to be getting things that are unrefined, so all the whole meal kind of foods and the the brown rice and that kind of stuff. That would be good things to kind of generally look out for, because that's low in sugar and starch, so that's a good thing to know also.
Yeah, I mean, my approach was very much just anything that looks real, anything out of a box, and not out of a box or not out of a can or package, anything that looks real. But I mean, that's probably the most simplistic approach, and obviously because I was very dedicated at the time, but so that's probably a more radical approach. But yeah, that's a great advice. Anything with sort of sugar or different types of oils or different types of salt. So that's probably first basis that people would look out for.
Yeah.
So are IBS and digestive problems the same thing? I mean, obviously IBS is under the umbrella of digestive problems, but is it the same thing? What's the difference between them? It's like, is there a specific difference between them?
Yeah, there is and there isn't. I mean, IBS is a digestive issue in itself, obviously, but then, you know, there are so many other digestive issues that come under IBS that can be part of it. So there could be, you know, general, you know, gut imbalances like the flora. You could have intolerances underneath that or allergies to foods. You could have, you know, different parts of the gut could be imbalanced. So you could have a low stomach acid, or you could have even high stomach acid, which is causing reflux. And then, but they kind of could all come under IBS because they're causing certain symptoms like bloating and gas and, you know, constipation or diarrhea. So all that kind of stuff can come under the IBS umbrella. But then you've got other digestive issues that may be more serious. Obviously, people, you know, doctors are trying to rule out. There could be Crohn's or colitis, celiac, those kind of, you know, stuff. Or you could have things like even bacterial overgrowth, parasites, you know, infections in the gut. They can come under IBS, but then they can be seen as a singular thing as well in diagnosis. So, I mean, you can't rule that out there, that might be causing what you know, the IBS that you're having. Yes. So that it just depends on what angle your doctor's coming from, and what they're trying to diagnose sometimes. But yeah, they're kind of interlinked, but they're not. I hope that explains things.
Yeah, no, that was a good explanation. So generally, so with the issues with IBS, it's generally bloating and irregular toilet patterns, and if you get them, then generally that's the term given to it. And you see, that's the thing, it's an embarrassing issue as well. It's like, you know, to tell people, people normally laugh. It's like, you know, oh, you know what, I've got cramps or I've got bloating and I must run to I think it's a taboo subject, but the thing is, it shouldn't be. I mean, it shouldn't be a taboo subject, because when I've had the effects of it really bad, it literally just takes over your life. It's like, it's a horrible thing to have. But do you still find people are a bit kind of afraid to tell you these symptoms, or afraid to sort of, you know?
Yeah, no, you do. It's actually one of my patients springs to mind when you say this, because he tends to turn around. There's a little joke thing with me, but he'll turn around and talk to the wall when he's trying to talk about his gut symptoms, because he gets embarrassed. So no, it is definitely, I think guys sometimes find it harder than women to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, I've had it myself, IBS, like for years I had it chronically, and I cured it through obviously studying a lot about it now, and I know, you know, what to do. So I mean, I can really relate to people when they do talk about the symptoms and how embarrassing it can be, and how stressful, you know, and anxious you can be about it. And you know, that kind of is a vicious circle sometimes, because you know, that obviously doesn't help. It's not normally the cause of it, because a lot of, you know, in the medical profession sometimes thinks that it is more psychosomatic, which it isn't, but definitely stress can exacerbate it. So it's hard when you feel like you know, you don't want to go out sometimes, and you don't know when something's going to happen, do you? It's very unpredictable. So I can definitely relate to all of that side of it, which helps, I think, with my patients.
Yes, yeah. So in your experience, and again, you know, anything we share, it's subjective. It's my opinion, it's Claire's opinion. Do you feel that kind of people get the right information from, you know, the medical profession? They sort of get the right diagnosis, get the right treatment? Because I certainly know when I went, it took 6 months to diagnose, and I mean, I'm glad that they did all the tests and stuff that they needed to, because at least anything bad was eliminated. But I mean, the only advice I really got was reduce your caffeine, increase your water, and actually reduce your fiber. So there's a really famous scientist up in Manchester way who specializes in this area, Professor War, and his research has found. So, but apart from that, I never really got anything else. Well, I know my stress has caused it, but how do I reduce the stress? How do I? So is that generally why people come to you, to look at it as a more kind of whole solution?
Yeah, I think, yeah, because doctors and the medical profession sometimes, yeah, because if it's not something serious and they've ruled all that stuff out and they think, well, there's nothing majorly inflammatory going on in your gut, and they assume that that's not something that exists, and you've just got the, they'll exclude it and say it's IBS. But with IBS, there is some level of inflammation, and they tend to think that there's not a connection to any, antibodies or immune reaction, and there is as well, especially when foods are involved. There's an IgG reaction, which is an antibody that's involved in food intolerances, and that can be involved in other types of inflammatory conditions as well. But I think, yeah, they're quick to kind of say that's not linked to that, and it's very simplistic. Yeah, like you said, the advice you get tends to be, if you're constipated, yeah, drink more water. If you're, constipated, have fiber. But sometimes in IBS, that advice, it can go the other extreme, and the fiber can, make your stools loose if you've got that tendency to, for it to, some people, they do go between the two sometimes. So you need to be careful with that. And there is general, not much information about the specific foods that could trigger the IBS. So like the allergies or the intolerances, or, other things you can do, like say, like, lifestyle factors. Too much exercise in some people might cause IBS, for example, because the adrenaline it produces. There's so many things, medications people are on, that could be causing your IBS. And I think a lot of stuff is overlooked. I say deficiencies, like if people don't tend to have a lot of omega-3 in their diet, their body tends to be in a semi-inflammatory state, so then they're more likely to get things like IBS. So I mean, you need to do so many tests and look out for so many things. I think, I mean, in my practice, I definitely will look at, say, it could be 50 things that I'm looking at in a questionnaire, so I don't miss anything out, and it could, like I say, be 10 reasons why you've got IBS. It doesn't have to be one reason, or, it could be even more than 10 sometimes. There could be so many imbalances going on that it's not surprising that someone's gut is in that kind of hypersensitive state. So yeah, I mean, I do think it's too simplified by the medical industry.
But I guess from their point of view, they're looking at, with the way the NHS is anyway overstretched, they're looking at sort of the more serious things, and like you said, the whole sort of digestive problems, IBS, is not serious enough for them to warrant a lot of time and concern, which is where people like you fit in, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I think also, I mean, because I'm not saying anything bad against, the medical profession. I think it's purely as well that they just don't have the time, or they don't do those types of training, that they just don't know what I would know, and it is that big gap in that knowledge where definitely I come in, because I'm filling that gap, so to speak.
So like we said, like I've said before at the start of the show, this is an alternative solution. Claire, and nutritional therapists and sort of holistic therapies, they're an alternative solution to what your GP would provide. So that's very much our message here. So how would you detect if your digestive system is off? I know it's part of like your really special bonus that you're giving away for people that have attended live, but just sort of very simplistically, what would be the couple of pointers to sort of get them to either come to you, someone like yourself, or go to their doctors?
General symptoms like bloating, a lot of gas. It could be upper, like in your stomach, or lower down, like you're getting cramps maybe, or you are like, finding yourself after certain foods as a pattern. You might run to the toilet, have loose stools, or it could be the other way. Some foods just completely constipate you, where you can't go at all, and for days you come in a lot of pain with that, obviously, because you're not clearing properly. And even things like, tiredness, general fatigue, feeling really just worn out easily. That can, because, you know, due to inflammation that's going on in your body, you know, in the gut in general, that can really make you tired. Even headaches sometimes, you know, from toxins, because if there's like an overgrowth of, you know, the non-beneficial bacteria, sometimes that can lead to things that, you know, so it could feel like it's quite a random symptom, but sometimes they are actually all connected to the same thing. So yeah, I'd say they're the common ones.
Yeah, because I've been going on to Yahoo Answers just to see what kind of questions people are asking about this, and I do see it. I mean, and the thing is, people are afraid. People are, you know, I've been getting this symptom for quite a long time, and I'm scared, and the doctors can't recommend anything, and you know, what shall I do? So people are actually afraid when nothing can be detected. So would you say that someone like yourself, a nutritional therapist, is a good sort of, you know, a good alternative solution for people to come to?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because I can do a lot of things that the GPs, you know, where we're testing, I can refer to specific labs that do deal with IBS and other forms of, you know, food intolerances and allergies, and there's all kinds of private tests that I can refer people to have that can diagnose, you know, imbalances in your gut. There's certain stool tests you can have done to, you know, detect specific overgrowths of bacteria. So it's not even just a generalized diagnosis. It's this strain of this bacteria, or this strain of yeast, or this parasite, and it's very specific. So, you know, that really helps inform your protocol, because then you know what you're playing with, obviously. So that is very useful. Yeah. And also my questionnaire is very comprehensive, so even if people don't sometimes have the budget for extensively, you know, paying out for testing, then I can always see a pattern of what's going on by the questions that I'll ask, and, you know, from the questionnaire it'll give me a lot of information where I'll be able to look at that and know there's an imbalance. And, you know, in general, the protocols I would use to treat a lot of the imbalances are the same, even if you didn't know the like specific strains of bacteria, you can still treat it regardless, because there are certain, you know, stages you have to go through to deal with it. So yeah, it's definitely worth coming to see someone like me.
Yeah, and a lot of research that I've done, and a lot of sort of videos I've been watching with specialists again in this area. It actually, the gut is actually, it really is sort of, you really do need to keep it healthy, because it's vital for overall health. Because I think 70% of your immune system is formed in the hormones are sort of made in the gut. So it is actually important to keep it healthy, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Now and also there's 500 types of bacteria at play in the gut, so, you know, it's quite easy for them to get out of balance in theory. You know, because there's so many that you need to have in the right ratio. So you know, it's one of those things that I think that's why it's so common, because there's so many factors in it, you know, that you need to control. So
well, again, I read we're actually more bacteria than we are cells. So there's more bacteria in your body than cells in your body. So yeah, like you said, as soon as one of these little critters is out of balance, then you've got a problem, haven't you? So this is where a lot of kind of probiotics come in. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's different strains of probiotics, like there's lactobacillus and bifido, but, you know, bacterium ones, and then you've got other things like Saccharomyces boulardii, which is they all kind of do different jobs. So they're for different parts of the immune system, you know, help different parts of the you know, the good flora grow. So, and there's prebiotics as well that you need to take that help. It's kind of like the fertilizer, so to speak, for the probiotics. So you need all of those together to sometimes deal with the problem. Sometimes you don't need so many strains. It depends on what the issues going on are. You know, things like Saccharomyces you might not need in some cases, but the other two are normally the approach I would use. Yeah.
So, you know, why does stress play such a big role in it? I know stress plays a really big role in it, because I know that's really what triggered my symptoms. But why does stress play such a big role? And yeah, just some simple stress reduction techniques that you might advise on.
Well, the stress thing, if we're in constant fight or flight, so like the adrenaline response in the body. If that's constantly chronically going on, which is in a lot of people, and especially if you're a worrier kind of person, that can be just constantly on the burner, in the back of your mind. And it obviously that gets worse as of people with IBS. You are going to be worrying more easily than the average person anyway. So you're constantly in that state of adrenaline, and adrenaline is connected to cortisol, which is another adrenal hormone, and the two have to be in the right balance in the body for your gut to not be inflamed, because cortisol is a hormone that controls the inflammatory response. So when that's imbalanced, you're more prone to inflammation, and then that goes into, obviously, because there's all the receptors in the gut and they're all connected to the hormones. So when the hormones are not at the right levels, then that is causing chronic inflammation all the time. And then when you've also, they deal with the adrenal hormones deal with food intolerances and allergies. So every time you might eat a food that is causing inflammation, the cortisol is pumped out to deal with it, and it is causing another load of imbalances with your hormones. So it's kind of like a vicious circle, because you're constantly producing the cortisol, and then your adrenal glands become more and more imbalanced, and you can't deal with the inflammation as easily, and it just gets worse and worse. So it's a case of having to remove those foods in that instance, if it is causing that imbalance.
So do you have any just quick pointers, any quick stress reduction techniques that our viewers can sort of start using immediately?
I mean, there are things you can do, at home, if you're someone who likes staying online. There are a lot of things on YouTube, like self-hypnosis, meditation, visualizations, just 5-10 minutes a day, doing that. Yoga is very good, very calming. If you're the kind of person that likes doing exercise, but it kind of works on the mind as well as the body. That's really good. I would always recommend things like that, or even therapies. Sometimes people go for hypnotherapies or EFT. If there's emotional stuff involved, that's a good thing to sort of calm your mind as well.
I think once upon a time the kind of meditation and the yoga was seen as for people out there, and some people like me that are more kind of mainstream, kind of commercial, wouldn't even go near it. But I am so realizing the benefits of it now. Just even concentrating on your breathing, or even when I go to the gym and the activity I do, my total focus is just on the activity. So like you said, like it's something that focuses your mind as well. It's for that 10 minutes or for that period, your mind is not on the stressful stuff and it's on something else. And I think that's how, to me, in my experience, that's how these things help.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, definitely. I think kind of like you said, yoga and meditation and just doing things that people enjoy is people should keep up with things they enjoy, shouldn't they?
Oh, definitely. Because when you're happy, obviously all the hormones and the neurotransmitters, they're all kind of working to balance everything out, especially serotonin. That's another issue sometimes with the gut, because the gut and the brain are connected, so you need your serotonin levels need to be at the right level as well.
The happy hormone, isn't it, which gets reduced in the winter here in England. And what? So, what are some kind of nutritional changes that you made or that you recommend to your clients? I'll do first specifically for IBS, and then if there's any specifically for general digestion. So that our listeners and viewers can sort of take away and start implementing straight away.
Normally there are common culprits that I see a pattern where people are either intolerant to dairy or gluten. Sometimes it's things like soya or corn, because anything refined is not great for IBS. And sugars, obviously, that's important as well. You don't want to be having a high sugar diet because that's refined, and that sugar causes inflammation. So any foods that are going to cause inflammation are not good. So sometimes it's a good idea to do a food diary to see if you can see a pattern. There might be something you're eating, or general, just removing any of those things obviously is going to be a major thing. Obviously including other foods that are going to help with the inflammation. So, you know, increasing things like omega-3. If you don't like oily fish, I always tell people to take a supplement instead. Things like zinc are good for healing the gut as well. So any foods high in zinc, so nuts and seeds, you know, fish, seafood, that kind of stuff. Again, you can take a supplement again if you're not absolutely not getting it from your diet. I would say also sometimes with IBS, foods that are harsh on the gut. So sometimes with the nuts and seeds, I say to people have nut butters rather than the actual nuts, because they can irritate. You know, when it's in that hypersensitive state, you don't want to give anything your gut's working too hard to break down. So things like raw food as well, you know, like salads and uncooked vegetables, they're not great either. So I'd say kind of try and minimize those things as well. And things more obvious probably to people, like alcohol, caffeine. You know, people might see an immediate reaction sometimes when they've had a drink, especially the night before. If they've gone and had a few drinks, their gut, you know, they might have a bit of IBS the next day. So kind of trying to minimize anything they obviously think is triggering an episode off. And digestion in general, there's things you can take, you know, like digestive enzymes, especially if you feel that someone's not absorbing properly. There might be some level of fermentation going on in the gut. So, you know, obviously if you haven't got the right number of enzymes in there, then it's going to cause that. Also, if you feel that someone's stomach acid is low, then you can take a supplement called HCl, which is the hydrochloric acid, which balances out. And sometimes actually people get reflux and their stomach acid is low, it's not on the high end, and sometimes that is misdiagnosed. So sometimes people tend to take the antacids or the medication to you know, suppress the acid, but sometimes it makes it even worse, and then you end up not being able to digest your food at all. So it's good to diagnose that properly, so you make sure, you know, you're going to balance out obviously the stomach acid levels if they need to be increased, because obviously you won't, if you don't have the right acid, you can't break down any minerals or protein from your foods. So that they're kind of, you know, things that you need to be aware of. And foods to avoid, especially with things like reflux. You know, a lot of people do suffer from heartburn, or the food, you know, comes back up.
Oh, I know, I've got a really big acid problem. I know, I had a really big acid problem.
Yeah, so it is very common, because a lot of people are generally taking, you know, Gaviscon on a daily basis, you know, things like Rennies. And again, you know, sometimes that might be because the stomach acid is low, but there's foods that for the meantime, you know, until you balance everything out and you can digest again properly, foods that are really spicy, greasy, acidic, you know, things like wines, tomatoes. Again, it could be like things that you're intolerant to, you need to be careful with because they're causing general inflammation. So that's important.
What's the best way to do a food diary? Because obviously you want to factor things out slowly and then factor things back in slowly. So, and I know two of the biggest culprits are obviously gluten, which is a protein found in wheat, and lactose, because a lot of people can't break down the enzyme found in milk. So
yeah,
you know, how do you do a food diary properly? Sort of simple ways to do a food diary.
I would suggest you do at least a week, and do like you can make like it into a grid. So like, you know, how much of the food and what type of food, and be specific, you know, as well, like everything that was in that meal, write it down. You know, some people just put porridge where you need to put, you know, it had milk and it had sugar and it had this fruit maybe added to it. So it's got to be very specific, and the amounts you had of it. And then also in another two columns, you can put, we call it a mood, food and symptom diary, because you put your symptoms, if you had any symptoms by the side of it. So it might be bloating or pain, or, you know, you went to the toilet afterwards or something like that. And then mood as well, generally, you know, sometimes food there can be a sign that you're intolerant if it affects your mood as well. And that can be a common thing that happens. People that, you know, anxiety, depression, just feeling a bit off can be linked to a food intolerance. So that's important to put that next to that. And headaches are another thing, actually, that's quite a common thing when you've got food intolerances. So things like that would really flag up something.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, because I know I've read about food diaries, and it's like, well, how do you start? Where do you even start from?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So is there anything you want to add, Claire? Is there anything sort of, you know, any sort of, you know, you know, just sort of a helpful finish before I start asking the viewers and the listeners any questions that there might be?
I think just, yeah, if you're having IBS issues, don't be scared. You know, the main thing is to reach out to someone and get advice. You know, even if it's just a friend or a family member initially, and because they might know a bit about it or know where to go, or you know, just go on the internet, and there's so much information on, you know, where to go, like people, you know, especially people like me, nutritional therapists, and just kind of, you know, make that first contact. And you know, I think it's important that people don't feel scared to try and find the answers, you know, because it is a lonely thing when you're suffering from IBS,
Yeah,
and you do feel like, you know, what do I do? There's so much, like I say, misinformation out there and conflicting information on the internet. It really does need to be helped through a professional, I think. So I would really strongly recommend, wherever you live, wherever you are, just go and seek advice from a professional, someone like me, and that would really, really help.
Yeah, I mean, again, with sort of information on the internet, I mean, the you know, the advice that I mean, the groups that I've been a part of, or the memberships that I'm part of, are sort of specific organizations for that topic, not like a random person who's put a post up, but specific organizations, because, you know, they're obviously, that's their speciality and that's their forte. Because, I mean, for me, that felt like the right thing. Would that be your suggestion as well? If they want to, you know, like on Facebook, you might have groups that specialize in something rather than just a random group. Because, like you said, there's just a lot of misinformation out there as well, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, definitely find a group that people have got, you know, some knowledge, or they've got
Yeah,
personal. If it's not just, you know, professional knowledge, it's personal.
credibility.
Yeah, they've gone through the same thing, because that's very useful, especially, as I say, when you feel like you're in your own on it, and it's only you that's suffering, and it
Yes.
does really help to know that loads of other people are going through the same thing. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, have you had any really great success stories, Claire? You know, my last couple of guests have been phenomenal. Sort of, you know, they've healed themselves from, you know, their own diabetes, their own, you know, lowered their cholesterol, lost weight, you know, got out of a wheelchair. Yesterday, the story was incredible, with Holly Mitson. So have you had any sort of really great success stories where a patient's come and they've had a particular digestive issue, but hey, as a result, you know, they've got that bounce and energy back, or they've lost a ton of weight, or they've healed something else? Because I think listeners always like to listen to encouraging stories.
Yeah, no, one person springs to mind. There was a lady who she actually had chronic fatigue, as well as, you know, a lot of digestive issues,
Yes.
needed to lose some weight in general. Yeah, and she could not go out of the house. You know, she would do something for one day and then be in bed for 3 days. It was so
Wow.
severe that it would just completely knock her out. And I knew it was due to gut imbalances, because, you know, chronic fatigue is connected to these things as well. So yeah, she came to see me, and she was addicted to sugar as well. She could not get off sugar. She was constantly just carbs, sugar all the time. And I suspected she had an overgrowth of yeast, and that was causing, you know, the cravings for sugars. And obviously the chronic fatigue was linked all back to this as well. And after seeing me, like 2 sessions, I was kind of a bit apprehensive, because I thought, you know, she came back the first time and it was, I don't really feel that much different. And I said, well, we need to still tweak your diet. We need to still do a lot of things, you know, to get you on the road to recovery. And it's not going to be quick either, because she had like hormonal imbalances as well, adrenal imbalances going on. So there was a lot of things going on. The next time she came to see me, she looked like a different person, and she just like was just sparkling like this new person I'd never seen before. She walked through the door, and I just, before she even spoke to me about anything that had changed, I just knew, you know, she was just looking 10 times better than she's ever looked. And she said, yeah, like, I've completely cut out sugar. I don't have any cravings. My gut's better. You know, I feel like I've got no fatigue. Like, it was just like a miracle had happened or something in the last couple of months. So yeah, I mean, things like that, when that happens, it just kind of, you're so happy for the person, and it inspires you so much to do, you know, to help people, because like success stories like that are just amazing. So
yeah, because I keep reading over and over again that the gut is actually your second brain now, and your whole, it is actually very much affected with your overall health, and everything else is going on. So no, that's remarkable. So just by people healing their gut digestion, effectively, it can actually have a lot of positive effects. And I know the positive effects that I've read about is weight loss as well. So it really is important that people sort of look after this area. And you know, I think a lot of people now think they have to live like this. You know, it's like it's a problem, and you know, we just have to live with it, because that's the advice you get. But they don't have to live with it, do they? Because like you said, there's some really simple, effective ways that you can actually curb it.
Yeah, and I think also because we're eating a lot of foods we're not really designed to eat genetically, yes, you know, on a deep level, I think it is very simple sometimes, and you remove that food and all your symptoms go away. It's just sometimes people struggle sometimes to take the advice that I give. You know, I think people got to be in the right place as well psychologically to really make these changes sometimes, because it's hard. Food is not an easy thing to change when you've been doing it all your life. You know, it is very habit forming. So I think the two go closely together. But yeah, no, it is definitely possible with a few simple changes. You can definitely feel much better.
Brilliant. And yeah, so any questions that you may have? Sorry, my show page is still down, so please put your questions in my Facebook page, the events page, my fan page, my normal page. So yeah, Claire's given some fantastic advice. I think we've covered most things. You've got a really good bonus for live viewers as well, and I've read it, and it's actually so informative. It's really brilliant. It's really, really good. So do you just want to go over that a little bit, Claire?
Yeah, so it's just tips really of how to know if you've got an imbalance, what to look for, so the symptoms that you might be having, like we touched on earlier. It goes into a little bit about the semi kind of science of behind some of it, so you know what imbalances specifically are going on with the flora. It might be things like leaky gut, which I mentioned, stuff that, you know, with the tiny perforations in the gut lining, which can be leading to food intolerances. General things to look out for, you know, not just in the intestines but in the stomach. There could be other symptoms for, you know, you might be having like the heartburn related issues. Specific foods to avoid and specific foods to include to help, and also supplements, things that would help if you included that in your diet, and lifestyle factors as well, anything that's going to help alongside. Yeah, they're kind of the main kind of topics that I've covered in the free.
It's brilliant because it's not exhaustive. It's just sort of very well constructed, very well laid out, and it's really good. So so thank you for being here live, because just for that bonus it was worth being here. And I've got a question coming in from Sophie from the UK, and we sort of touched on it, but she's asked specifically, would we follow your advice in conjunction with obviously any medical advice or any medical treatments that would be given from the GP or, you know, medical practitioner?
Yeah, no, you can definitely follow advice I would give you in conjunction, especially if, you know, they've already touched on some of the things I've said, and it's just in addition to that, especially as well, like, you know, sometimes people take medication for these conditions, and I can always work around, you know, safely if someone's taking medication from your GP. There's protocols you can safely use. A lot of the things that I use anyway are safe regardless if you're on medications or not, so you can definitely use it alongside approaches from normal NHS based medical.
God, I had another question. We've got another question coming in as well. Is it a one-size-fits-all? Amber from Australia wants to know, is it a one-size-fits-all approach? So, you know, the same things that work for me, would they work for someone else, and would they work for someone else, Claire?
No, I mean, I do think there are certain protocols that do work for everybody, certain parts of the protocol, I would say, but there are so many variations and there are so many root causes of IBS that unless you diagnose the proper cause, sometimes, you know, obviously that's going to affect the treatment plan. So you need to know individually why that person has got IBS. So it could be, you know, X, Y, and Z, or it could just be, you know, X rather than, you know, Y and Z. So you need to make sure you know that and then put together an individualized plan. as I said, there are similarities throughout the plans that I give people, but there are always differences because, as I say, everyone is so individual where, you know, the triggers are different for different people.
And I've got another question coming in as well, and that's from Neil. And what he's saying is, are these things difficult to get a hold of? You know, very often, you know, there's so many things that you can, you know, that you can't even pronounce it. I mean, what you know, your suggestions, are they easy to follow? Are they simple? Are they easy to get a hold of? Where can people get a hold of them?
Yeah, I mean, any foods that I might recommend, you can always get now, either in supermarkets, they do, you know, free from sections. They're very good now with a lot of foods, I would say to people to try. And generally, if you can't get that there, you can get them in Holland Barrett, or you could get them online, even if you know, some people shop online. Amazon is very good. Goodness Direct is another website which is very good for foods. Also supplement wise, yeah, they're easy. I mean, online you can get all these supplements also in Holland & Barrett, I would say some, but then don't tend to be as good as the ones you could get on certain brands are better than others. I can give ideas of brands if, you know, people are interested, like BioCare is good, and Lambert's is quite a good brand to get. I mean, if you go online, there are lots of online supplement shops. So things like NutriCenter is a very good place to shop. They've got a lot of supplements, and also you can call up the actual shop for advice if you want, you know, specific advice on any supplements. But yeah, they're very accessible. All this kind of stuff is easy to get hold of.
Okay, brilliant. And so if someone wants to get a hold of you in particular, how can they catch you? Where can they find you? How can they contact you, Claire?
They can either go into my website, which is www.nutrikindnutrition.com, or I'm on Facebook. They can find me through the same name on Facebook. Also, on my website, obviously, there's more details on there of how to come and see me at the clinics. I'm also on some general, if you Google my name, I'm on some nutrition resources that I'll come up on there. So it's quite easy to find me.
Quite easy to find you. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So thank you very, very much. You shared a lot of really useful information here. And like I said, your bonus, for anyone that turned up, your bonus is really, you know, it's it could just be used as the Bible, as a start, you know, healing the digestion. So thank you so much for your time. And what I'm going to do as my Sorry, Claire. Did you want to say something there?
Oh, no, I was going to say thank you as well. Thank you.
Brilliant. And just before we round off, on my Facebook pages, I'm actually going to put a link that you can register on for my upcoming shows, because now we're getting in the flow of them. I'll be getting lots of awesome guests like Claire, so I'll put that up on my social media and Facebook pages. So, and one last question, Claire. As this is fuelyourselffabulous.tv, what's your main tip stroke advice for people to fuel themselves fabulous? And it doesn't have to be food. It could be like a lifestyle change, a mindset change, or it can indeed be food. So what's your one bit of advice that you would recommend?
I would say take some time out every day for yourself. Always do something to either relax or pamper yourself, because that's very important, because people forget about themselves, I think, on a general day-to-day basis. So yeah, you're number one.
Yeah, brilliant. You know, brilliant. I did some coaching a while ago, and that's exactly what she said. She said you need to take some time out for yourself, whatever it might be. So thank you very much, Claire. So yeah, look out for my post where you can sort of register for upcoming shows. And until the next show, it's Sabrina Khan from fuelyourselffabulous.tv.